Hi, everybody.
Hi,
This is Wisdom of the Age. I'm Ann Goldberg,
Jane Sloat.
and we're so happy you're here with us on this lovely day. We're continuing this conversation about manners. And I got really curious because there's this conversation out there that people don't have manners these days.
It's not even a conversation. It's like a pre-murder scene.
What do you mean by that?
People want to kill each other
Well,
and do. I mean,
verbally,
politically, but even politically, they threaten bodily harm. They shoot people. On the political stage.
Well, I was thinking more of children. I was thinking more of generational thing and how manners are changing and how the simple nice things like please and thank you and excuse me.
I don't even know if we can use the word manners anymore.
Well,
It's just a lack of total negative. Everything
I
is
don't really give a
me.
good goddamn what other people think. I think manners are important.
Well, of course.
And I'm not going to stop using manners and being polite for any reason.
That's right.
And it's this. We were talking about politically correct last week, and for the love of Pete, manners supersede everything because manners are about caring about the other person.
That's right.
Manners are not for us per se. Manners are an expression of how we see the other.
Right.
Whether you push in front of somebody or you go, excuse me.
Well, that's the point. That's the problem. Everybody has this little me, and that's what all they see is the little me.
Yeah. What's in it? What is in it for me?
That's right.
That
It's like
rhythm,
the world
that
doesn't. It's
guides
like
them.
everybody's autistic. They're just in this little me, and there's no outside world.
You see it. I see it when I'm driving. I'm very aware of the cars around me. And if I'm about to pull into another lane, I always check. And if there's a car coming and they're coming fast, heck, I don't want to cut that car off. I'm going to wait until they pass me.
Mm-hmm.
And I observe other drivers, they don't even look. They don't consider anything. There's a spot, boom, they're in.
They don't look, they don't signal. They do not signal, even.
I'm sometimes guilty of that.
Well, that's really not
And
good.
I'm actually aware of it now and trying. Oops, hang on. Did we lose you for a minute? No, I think we're back. We lost connection for just a brief second. Anyway, it looks like we are on. Okay, cool. So this idea of manners. So manners and etiquette, right? Manners, as I said, we define them really as how we treat each other, right? It's a show of respect and kindness for the other person. And manners are something that come from home. We learn that. I remember when my kids were little, it was very important to me that they understood please and thank you because of the greater meaning behind it. You don't command somebody to do something or demand it, and you don't take for granted when you get something. There's an expression of gratitude, an expression of excuse me.
People have no gratitude.
So where's the breakdown? Is it in the parenting?
Yes, of course.
Where do you think it started? Are we baby boomers part of the problem?
Their these children's parents are themselves babies. This is already the third generation of bad parenting.
So where did it come from? Our parents? Did it come from the great generation? I don't think so.
I think in this era, it came from the 60s.
Right, the baby boomers.
Yeah, the 60s when
agree.
everybody was, everything was thrown overboard and anything goes.
All reason went out the door.
Anything I want to do, I'm getting high. Who gives a damn about anything?
Well, no, I think because I've done a little studying on the baby boomer generation, and while we started out as a generation, we started out very much the way the millennials are today. We did not trust authority. We did not trust big business. We were distrustful of politics, and we weren't voting. I saw a clip of, oh God, I think it was John Denver and Cass Elliot. And this was from 1969 maybe, where she was talking about the importance of voting. Get out and vote. Your vote matters. And I was like, it could have been last month.
Right.
For the relevance of the message. And all I could think of is, wow, the similarities between our generation and the millennials now. The thing is that the baby boomers, we, as we moved into the late 70s and 80s, fell to the allure of money. And we moved from the focus on love and social justice to me. What's in it for me? I want the money. I want the success. I want all the trappings. And the drugs maybe got more sophisticated or they went away. Either way. But we moved into this generation and our kids suffered for it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
They're brats.
Well, mine aren't.
Mine
Not
aren't
in that
either.
way.
But most of the kids, because I taught them all, are brats.
Yeah, I remember my children were in private school when they were younger. Both of them went through early childhood in private school, and my older son right through high school. And I used to go when the school year started, and I would say to the teachers, listen, hold my son accountable. If he does something, I want him to be responsible for his behavior. And honest to God, I won't say the school, but they would look at me, the teachers, and go, really?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I want him responsible. You
That's
let
right.
me know if he does something. And they would be like, wow, that's refreshing to hear. And I asked them, are you kidding me? You mean other parents
No, they
don't want their kids taking responsibility? And they
No.
would say, nope, they do not.
No,
They
don't.
blame the teachers.
That's right. That's exactly what they do. I did the same thing with my children. Any time a teacher complained, I used to yell at my kid. Teacher was always right, even if she wasn't right.
When I was 11, I was in the 6th grade, and we had sewing class back then. We were making aprons,
Yeah.
so that when we went into junior high school, i.e. middle school, the girls took cooking, the boys took shop, and we were making aprons for that cooking class. And my 6th grade teacher was Miss Rich. She was this old biddy. And she didn't like the way I sewed the seam binding onto the edge of my apron. And she ripped it out 3 times. And literally ripped out the stitches and said, redo it.
Yeah.
The 3rd time she did that, I stamped my foot. I said, no, you redo it. She looked at me. I said, you ripped it out. You redo it. I was quite the little rebel. And she reprimanded me and told me to go to my seat. And this is how in the moment she was. It was February. I remember it. It was very cold. There was snow on the ground. I went to the back of the room. I put on my coat. I put on my galoshes. I closed the only reason she knew I left the room was because in my anger, I slammed the door. And I lived around the corner from the school, and I went home. And I waited for my mother, right? And she came home, and I told her the story. I got punished. Decades later, my mother told me that she raised holy hell in that school, that sewing they changed the rules all around it. The teacher was reprimanded for the way she treated me. But I never knew that until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, but, she didn't have to be so harsh about it, but it's good for children to want to do something better rather than just settling for things.
Well, I understand,
There's
but there's
so
a way
much-
to encourage it, and there's a way to...
Absolutely right.
Yeah.
But there's so much that's substandard these days.
But, getting into the difference between manners and etiquette, because we veered off a little bit on that. But, etiquette, like we said, manners are taught in the home. Etiquette, though, is taught like at finishing school.
Mm-hmm.
Etiquette's a whole other thing. Etiquette's like, what's in politics? Protocol. Etiquette is like protocol.
Yeah, with etiquette, it doesn't involve somebody else. It's just what you're doing
Right.
as a presentation of yourself.
Right. It's how it's.
It's not an intercommunicative thing.
Okay, so what we, let's see, etiquette is behaviorally based, exactly what you said. And etiquette varies from culture to culture. This is what I found so interesting. Manners are very much the same in many cultures. The gratitude of thank you, the respect of saying please, respecting elders, certain things that come through, not always here, but through the ages. There are certain commonalities in manners that we've seen. But etiquette, not at all. Etiquette is completely different.
No, etiquette is not a middle class thing.
No, not at all.
It's an upper class thing.
Very much so,
That's taught in finishing schools.
Right. I mean, the thought of that is really so 1940s. It's hard to imagine, but it still goes on, I think.
Yeah, like how to wipe your mouth with a napkin.
On the corner.
And how to cut,
and how to walk, and how to greet people, and how to shake a hand properly.
Yeah, but you know, when you think about it, how gruff and rough and rude and disgusting kids can be, I would even like to see etiquette.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think that, I think things like etiquette, what comes through my mind is I'm thinking about a class I teach on humor, laughter, and living longer. And the genesis of humor goes back to the apes. And apes can exhibit not only laughter, but actual humor. And early man, before language, humor, you could call it etiquette, the behavior, that would denote, like after a battle, when the warriors would fall in laughter, they weren't going to kill each other anymore. There was no danger left. It was a way of communicating.
Right.
And I think etiquette sort of comes from that.
Yeah, because that's from like the age of chivalry, where there were certain presentations of behaviors that were acceptable and different, like picking up the lady's handkerchief or
spreading your cloak over water.
Right.
Oh, great.
So, but today, of course, that doesn't fly because females don't like to be whatever they don't like to be. Made to be like females. Helpless, I don't know. What are they talking?
It's so funny because in the 1980s, I was an executive recruiter for actuaries, 80s and 90s. And that was when women were really starting to take their place in the corporate world. And women wore men's suits, only cut for women. And I would go to these conferences filled with actuaries, and there weren't very many women actuaries, but the ones who were there all dressed like men. And the first 2 years, I did it for 23 years. The first 2 years I did it, I dressed like a man too. And then I looked around and I thought, I don't really like this whole suit thing. I'm a girl. I want to wear a dress.
Right.
And so I did.
Right.
It was revolutionary. Now, it wasn't sexy. It wasn't anything cut out.
And then the men started wearing dresses.
No, but what happened was they remembered me. But I didn't feel that I had to look like a man in order to compete in business. In fact, I felt I am not a man.
Right, exactly.
And that, I'm not sure where that fits in. Maybe in some world of etiquette where people are supposed to be a certain way. I'm not sure. I don't know why I told that story. But
no, but
it's a good story.
Yeah.
So, manners. I keep getting back to this because, I'm very happy that my son married the woman he did. Largely, other than that she's a wonderful woman, I see how she's raising her daughters. And they have manners. They say please. They say thank you. And my son, he's also a very big part of that because that was drummed into their head. And you just don't expect those things from people. You have to be nice. Not that I always do it, but I try. I try to remember it. Mm-hmm. And I think that when manners break down, we have a breakdown in society. And that goes to your original comment where we started. And I think that's where we are now. with this breakdown of manners and etiquette that never reached the general population.
No, there's chaos.
There is chaos. And that is why manners are important.
Yeah, I don't know if you could even think of having manners today. It just doesn't fit any place.
I disagree. I have manners wherever I go. And I've been doing a lot of thinking.
Well, I'm talking about in the political sphere. I thought that's what you were talking about.
It's not just the political sphere. It's the world.
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
How people drive, how people move through
right.
crowds.
Well,
it's got to do
there
with.
have to be manners.
It's every man for himself, and when it's
Right.
every man for himself, you lose propriety.
Right.
That's where manners make a difference.
That's right.
You know,
That's
when
right.
when we're getting some comments here. Okay, cool.
What is it?
People are watching, so it's nice.
Oh,
no
hello,
comments yet.
everybody.
We welcome your comments, by the way. If you have some
Yes.
thoughts on the idea of manners and how it impacts our world today, we'd love to hear from you, because this is everything that I see in day-to-day living has just shown a degradation of manners. And where it becomes so interesting to me is when I go out of my way to have them and the response I get from people, which is surprise.
Mm.
When I say thank you to someone who has helped me, more often than not, they look at me like, oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Like, oh, gee, somebody said thank you. That blows my mind.
Mm.
That's really what I'm speaking to in this. The political situation is off the hook these days. And by the way, where I've landed with all of that is I just don't want to talk politics with people.
Absolutely not.
I think
hate talking.
Bill Maher put it really well on his last show of this season. He said, as you get together at the holiday tables, all right, talk about everything except politics.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Talk about the things you have in common and love each other, for God's sake. And, you know, that doesn't mean that I'm going to make personal relationships with people whose politics I don't agree with. I may not hang out with them on a deeply personal level, but I can accept them, and I can begin to break down some of the walls that I built in my initial reaction to a lot of what went on.
Mm.
Not that I don't still have my suspicions, but I simply cannot go into the world hating and distrustful. I have to be the change I want to see, so I have to maintain my manners. I have to maintain a certain degree of etiquette that I know it to be.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't raised with a lot of it, but some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want that to go away.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important. And I value it when I see it. And when I'm around younger people, I talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, with our grandchildren, you have grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have conversations with them about manners?
Yeah.
How does it come about?
They forget to say thank you or please. I don't chide them. I just say, oh yes, please. I just repeat it.
Right. We remind them. It's
Yeah.
important to say.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes, and I think I'm going to employ this with my grandchildren, sometimes I want to say to them, we say please as a sign of courtesy, as a sign of respect.
Mm-hmm.
It's good manners. And actually start talking about
and
this.
it has another side of it. People who go into the work world, especially ones who are more educated, perhaps, and they don't say please, they don't say anything, they don't get anywhere. People just tune them out. They just don't get anywhere.
So that's a really interesting point. So if any of our listeners are experiencing issues with others, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just interpersonal stuff, whether it's work or friendships,
Mm-hmm.
take a look at how you're interacting.
Right.
Take a look at yourself.
That's
you know,
right.
wherever you go, there you are. And if you're having a consistent problem in different situations in
The
your
only
life,
thing that's the same is you.
I remember when I realized that about a year and a half ago, and I was thinking to myself, it's always happening to me.
Yeah.
And in one great epiphany, I went, oh, I'm the common element in every one of these situations.
That's
it's
right.
me. Oh, God, that was a little painful. But it made a big shift in me to realize I have to make the changes if I want people.
And people actually being that me create the situations with each of those people.
Say that again?
People who are the me in the relationship, the subject, creates the responses in the other person.
Yeah.
They set up the relationship, they set up the conversations to have exactly that same response that they get in all conversations.
Right, but it's of course unconscious. It's not something anybody does knowingly. But that's why that's a moment of awareness, right? Yeah. When you have the awareness, like I had, all of a sudden I got that awareness, oh my God, it's me. What do you have to do differently, Anne, to get a different response in your life? And I had to look at me, how I was interacting with others, how I was showing up, what my words are, what my unconscious communication was. Right. I could be smiling and scowling right at the same time. And that's a very, that's coming from me.
Yeah.
The authenticity of who I've been.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference in my relationships with others. So, let's see, some other comments. Okay, let's talk about some of the manners we see, or bad manners. Let's talk about cell phones.
Oh, cell phones.
I knew that would get her.
Oh my gosh. I don't know why people think that their conversation is the most interesting thing to everybody. And they're just screaming into their phones, absolutely screaming into their phones.
In a public place.
In public places. So I say to them, this is a public place. They say, I know, that's why I'm talking in it. Can you imagine such an unbelievable answer?
And that goes right to manners. Because manners is defined is respect, kindness, and consideration for others.
That's right.
And, it's like a crying baby. I had my second son, God bless him, I love that child so much. Did he cry? Oh my God, he would throw tantrums, and we would be in a restaurant or a public place, and I would, as soon as I saw that where it was going, I would remove him. We would go outside immediately because the rest of the world did not need to hear my screaming child.
Right.
And I see parents who make different choices. And it's just shocking to me that there's no consideration for others.
That's right.
When in those situations. And the whole thing with cell phone, you're right. You can be somewhere and I don't really want to hear what's going on. It's an invasion of my privacy.
Yeah, or at least make it seem like you have some sense that you don't want to upset everybody, but at least covering your mouth or something, anything.
Speaking softly.
Right. But
taking it off speakerphone.
But they don't. Well, people keep it on speaker so they don't get brain cancer. But
use a wired headset.
But anyway,
So, how about excessive virtual socializing as manners?
That's a sickness.
Talk about that a little bit. We have a few minutes left.
That's an addiction. I mean, a lot of people are addicted to it. And A, and B, people simply do not know how to interact anymore with real human beings. They know how to talk to Siri. And that's it,
Do you know when I ask my phone to do something and it does it, I unconsciously say thank you.
Okay.
Because I'm so programmed to it, and I really want the phone to say you're welcome, because I think that's really important.
Right.
And I think that, Apple and Samsung and LG, if you're listening, Android, I think these things have to have some manners to model some behavior.
But then it would get a little too far out there sick.
but the fact of the matter is, because we're so used to giving commands to our phone, we start to operate like that with other people.
That's right.
That's the danger.
Okay.
You know, when things become so matter of fact, and you're just, Siri, what's the, you know, as opposed to, can you please give me the, you know,
well, you can't talk like that to Siri.
Of course,
please,
well, she wouldn't understand you.
No, she wouldn't. She's not programmed that way.
And that's the crazy thing. Well, I don't know. I haven't tried it, but I don't think so. It's, you know, they're programmed to get keywords, so it may or may not be relevant. But this whole idea of cell phone usage, and when I love my phone. Don't get me wrong. I'm much more technologically involved than Jane is. And I have my phone all the time. Oh, yeah. I mean, I love technology.
Oh, you love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm interacting with it all the time.
Yeah, no, I don't love it.
And there are times when I simply put it away.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times I've walked out of the house and just not taken it with me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. And when I found myself doing it by accident, and my first instinct is to panic, and then I go, you know what? Let it go. Nothing is so urgent that it can't wait a few hours. You'll deal with it.
Right.
It's inconvenient, yes, but it is not earth-shattering. And the truth of the matter is it causes me to think and be different than if I had my phone.
That's right.
It's really important that we get some distance from our technology. And because we know the studies on happiness for the past 80 years from Harvard, from Stanford, from the Blue Zones and others, we know that human happiness, we've said this before, is each other.
Mm-hmm.
And here we go moving towards these devices,
yeah,
moving away from manners, moving away from each other, and interacting with each other with an intermediary.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't go to happiness and health. You seeing a rise of depression?
Oh, yeah, depression, all kinds of things. People are simply whacked out.
Yeah.
They're not what I call normal. They don't know how to respond to questions. They don't know how to have a conversation. They don't know manners. They don't know how to empathize. They don't know, they just don't know how to be human, what we called human.
No, we're not demonizing everybody, but there are more and more people, and especially young people, who are coming into their adulthood.
They came
similarly.
out of the womb with a phone in their hands.
Right. Kind of. You know, we had Thanksgiving here, and I'm so happy we have babies in our family now. We have 3 little ones under the age of 5. And my great-nephew's 2.5. And they came to the table with phones that were making noises. And I said, no electronics at the table. And the price we paid for that is the 2.5-year-old cried for about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I was willing to put up with that price
because
it's so important to me that the children not learn that it's okay to hide in social situations.
Yeah.
This all goes to the development of manners, to interacting, to recognizing how important it is to be with each other.
Socialization is very, very, very important for the brain.
Very.
Very, very, extremely important.
For the healthy development of a human being.
Absolutely.
Totally. Well, we are at 12:30.
Oh my God.
Time flew.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Thank you so much
Thank you for coming.
And next week, we'll be back. And hold on, I'll tell you in a second, because I forgot. Next week, we're going to be talking about the holidays. Oy vey, it's the holidays.
The holidays.
Yeah, and tactics and tools to get through the holidays with greater emotional joy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. Hope to see you next week.